Good noon, everyone. It's right at noon, I think, today. I got a little bit later start. Apologize for that. So here we go. I got today's Wall Street Journal, and I got a listing of, I think, about 7 articles I want to look at today. And try something a little bit different. I'm still having trouble with scaling on the screen. My picture is pretty small, and the notes are pretty large, but I'll get better at it. I can learn this technology. It just takes me a little bit of time to work at it. Excuse me. So first of all, today, Fiat's to go upscale. So Jeep is, Fiat obviously is the parent company name, has been telling its Jeep dealers that they want to have standalone showrooms for Jeep products. And they're trying to prepare for the release of the new Grand Wagoneer, a larger Jeep SUV. By the way, fully loaded would be about $100,000. They've got some stiff competition at that level. And they're gonna have some real stiff competition. But a lot of people in the U.S. love the Jeep. Jeep has 5% of the U.S. market right now, and 11% of the U.S. SUV market. But a lot of new competitors are coming in there. Obviously, the new Bronco is going to compete at the Jeep and at the normal Jeep level, not at obviously at the SUV, larger SUV level. But so a lot more competition, and Jeep is prepping up for that. Jeep now has 59 standalone showrooms in the U.S., and they plan for 200 more. The issue they've got right now is when the users start with a Wrangler and they want to start sizing up, it's not an option to do, especially with 3-row seating. I think one of the new Jeeps is going to bring out 3-row seating as a product offering. So Jeep's got some work to do, but they obviously are very well liked in the U.S. and worldwide market, by the way. Number 3, a South Dakota Powerball winner is selling his ranch. A few years ago, he won the $232 million Powerball. By the way, that's paid out over 30 years, $232 million. So he chose the lump sum payment, which was $88 million, right? So a little bit more than a third is what he took. A little bit less than a third, I'm sorry, to take it out in lump sum. And he said at the time when he took it out that he was going to be very responsible in spending the money. And he's proved to be very responsible. So this property he's selling is a 50,000-acre ranch in South Dakota. It's got 4 homes on it, and the sale price is $41 million. And by the way, he's been big in charitable giving, and so observation. You don't see too many Powerball winners be very responsible with their winnings, right? I mean, really, the facts bear out that the people at the low end of the economic scale with the least training in how to handle large sums of money win Powerball tickets. I mean, that's just the case. That the facts of the matter is people with larger incomes typically don't play Powerball as much. By the way, they do play. I even play when it gets real large, but typically don't. Interesting enough, this guy was very poor, hardly making his bills, and bought a ticket at a gas station when he was buying gas. Very, very typical purchase. And but it's neat to see a winner that's been responsible and created something out of it, and spend it wisely. Let's see if he can get $40 million for a ranch in South Dakota. That'll be the test. Obviously, it's got to take somebody with lots of money and not planning to spend their winter there. So, by the way, this guy now has a home in Arizona, and his new wife has a ranch up in Canada. So that's the issue with the ranch, is he doesn't spend much time there anymore. Facebook is going to bar political ads 1 week before the election. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of that company, believes the country is too divided and it's too risky of election not to have any last-minute issues. So interesting position he's taken here. So first of all, you got to ask, in a country that prides itself on free elections, is this the correct approach to do? Just to shut off all elections 1 week before. In other words, 2 weeks before it's okay, but 1 week before election is too close. Or the other question I'd have is, are other media matching this? Are you going to be unable to buy a TV ad 1 week? I doubt it. The TV channels make a lot of money off that. So I doubted that. And then maybe the final observation I've got on this is this a CYA, cover your behind behavior, because they took a lot of heat in 2016 because they had a lot of web pages out there and a lot of stuff with attacking both sides, by the way, of inaccurate information, and they're just trying to stay out of this. They're a private company, so they have the right to do this, but as they become more and more treated like a media company, you wonder if this will be legal in the future. So I think this is him, Zuckerberg, not wanting to be part of the story the day after election. I think there's going to be lots of stories this year on the election, and he wants out of it. That's just Lee's common sense type view of it. Rochester Suspends Officers. So this is a case that happened before the Floyd case. It didn't take a lot of press because it was pretty well hidden. But this man was taken into custody. He died 7 days after they put him in a physical restraint, including what they call a spit sock. It's a kind of a mask that goes over the head to keep them from biting officers and also from spitting fluids that could be disease laden at officers. And there's some belief that maybe this sock helped in the asphyxiation death of the man. And oh, by the way, in the article there was just one reference to that he also had acute PCP intoxication, acute PCP intoxication. So you got to ask yourself, when you start looking at these, that there's an underlying condition in each one of these that creates a situation in which officers are put in this very tough situation to take down and try to control a person that's under some kind of drug mental condition, drug and by the way, both typically, mental condition. And they're trying to restrain this person. So in this scenario, the family called the cops in on the person. He was acting strange. He's already been dismissed from a hospital, a mental hospital, and he by the way, he's in Rochester, and he's previously had a mental health crisis in Chicago. It's believed that he had to leave Chicago because of those. He was living with his sister. So we're working with an individual that's got a lot of issues. Should be in a hospital somewhere, right? But no, they've dismissed from the hospital, and they're out walking on the street. And now we've said, policeman, I know you're trained for lots of things, but we want you to try to restrain this person. So we're working on the wrong problem. Are we trying to solve a problem where cops are treating these individuals wrong. Whatever they do, by the way, whether they shoot them, they're wrong. Whether they try to hold them down and restrain them, they're wrong. In this case, they put a sock on them and tried to restrain them, and that didn't work. So, is the root problem racist or violent cops? I think generally they believe they're racist because the victim is often a black man. Or is it out of control mental drug patients walking around on the street and that their own families can't handle? And it looks like in some cases the hospital can't handle. So, what would your process be if you were a cop and you came upon a situation like this? What would you do? You're trained to try to restrain this person to stop them from hurting themselves and from hurting their family and bystanders. And now you're put in a position because the mental health process is broken. We're saying, policemen, go do this job that nobody else wants to do or can do or is given up on or is not funded. We could argue that from a number of perspectives, and that's for another article. But cops, do your best, and we'll have your back. No. Sorry, we won't have your back. We're not going to have your back. And in fact, we're going to hold you responsible for an irresponsible person or a person that's so pumped up on drugs or with mental problems that they can't handle this. Tough situation. I don't have any quick answers to it, but I think we certainly are working on the wrong problem. And fixing cops is not going to fix the fact that we're going to have mental or drug patients wandering around in the street that do out of control things, and they're very hard people to control, as trained police officers will tell you. So Mulan is a live action remake. So Disney has brought out the remake of the Mulan movie and made it live action this time. In fact, they've used a Chinese actress. Her name is Liu Yifei. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Certainly, they're looking at the Chinese market because they, last time the Mulan was, they said more of a California girl than a Chinese lady, but certainly they're aiming at that Chinese market for this one, and it's a huge movie market over there. But interesting enough, with the theaters opening back up now, Disney has decided not to take it to the theater and instead taking it to their own streaming channel, Disney Plus. And by the way, unlike Hamilton that they put on their Disney channel for free, if you're already paying for the streaming service, Disney said, no, we're going to charge you an additional $29.95 for this. Probably about the size of the amount of 2 movie tickets, I guess. 2 or 3 movie tickets, assuming the whole family's going to watch it. That may be a good deal. But obviously, those of us that don't have Disney Plus can't watch it. We're going to figure out either, do we go get this streaming service for that one movie or what? Wall Street Journal tended to pan this movie. They said it was a darker rendition than the last one, more feminism focus, and not as fun. The characters weren't as fun. So interesting. So not to reopening theaters. So you got to ask yourself more and more as movies are starting to go straight to streaming. I saw the other day one of the Joe Bonamassa is doing a streaming concert, and I forgot to look up the ticket price for him. He's a guitar player. Those of you who don't know, plays a lot of blues and rock music. But are the live theaters going to be a thing of the past after COVID? I don't know. We'll see. They seem to be skipping them right now. Last article. I'll switch here. Trump, vote early and vote often. So we've got this thing where Trump was quoted in about the North Carolina elections, and he's telling people to vote absentee. So he's always had this difference. He said absentee is okay, but this massive mail-in voting is not okay, and it's submitted. It'll result in massive fraud. So what he said was, check your vote by voting in person. So he's saying, I'm worried about the vote getting there. So go ahead and send in your absentee vote, but then go vote in person to see if they got your vote. And the systems are good. He says, I assume their systems are good, and they'll catch you when you're voting in person. They'll say, no, we already have your ballot, so you're okay. So the enemies of Trump obviously said this is illegal, and it's intended to jam up the election, vote in-person election polling places. And the truth of the matter, if you look at the law, if the intent was bad, in other words, if you really intended to vote twice, yes, it's illegal. But they would have to prove your intent on that. And if your intent was to check to make sure your mail election got there, your mail vote ballot got there, then they'd have a tough time proving that was illegal. And I don't know that any election office is going to go after hundreds of people doing this, but enough. Trump, this didn't make much sense, and I'll finish with I think what he should have said. But he's got everybody discussing the mail-in ballots right now. So interesting, North Carolina's come out and said that you can find out from home whether your ballots have arrived. So they have two systems, and this is one of Trump's complaints, is everything's happening at the last minute because we haven't got any time. And so election officers are scrambling at the last minute to cover for all the increase in mail-in ballots. So North Carolina had one system that you go on a website to see whether your ballot arrived. And then there's other system called ballot tracks where you can actually track your ballot. And it's confusing to me if you can track it through the mail system. The mail, and we discussed earlier on this program, the mail system does have some tracking system. Interesting to me, see if they're using that or what. But by the way, that's not available yet. And it's online, and they're working on it, and it'll be available any day now. So the observation I would have is, can everyone determine if the ballots arrived? Remember the ID issue. The ID issue said, no, people of color and poor people don't have IDs, therefore, so you're going to disenfranchise. Remember, that's the term. So now we're going to disenfranchise the same group of people because they can't check if their ballot arrived on time, or even if it arrived. So usually when we come up with these disenfranchising tests, we don't apply them to other things because it's not what we want. We want mail-in ballots right now, but we don't want IDs, right? So that's the thing that doesn't make sense to me in my observations. I think Trump should have targeted the states going to all mail and went after him, said, can you track these ballots? Can you tell your voters that, reassure them, okay, so that we don't have this contested election this year. We're going to have a contested election this year. It's easy to predict. You don't have to be a very smart man to predict that. I think he should have gone after these states and said, here's the 4 or 5 things you better have if you're going to all mail ballots this year. You better have a clean voter database so you're not sending ballots the last 3 generations of people who lived in my house. And you better have a system to ensure that we know that the ballot actually made it on time. So, and I came up with another thing too. Are we going to have election officials at the post office? So we have election officials in fact, usually both parties have their election officials there. Every point in the ballot of the election office, when it arrives in, they're watching the boxes unloaded, right? And we're watching every process of it and taking notes and everything in election office. If the post office is going to be such a key piece of this process now, and ballots will be there for weeks, right? 3 to 5 days first class mail, even if it's sent first class mail. Marketing mail, a lot of them are done, cheaper and longer. So a large part of the process is going to be there. Are we watching that? Interesting, point. Where are these election officials going to be? We got to look where they're going to be. So that's today's Wall Street Journal. I hope you've enjoyed it, and appreciate having you here today, and appreciate your comments. Cheers.